Media for voter registration and engagement. My name is Megan Cassell, Senior Director of Policy and Member Advocacy, and I'm joined by Kendall Ridley, our Senior Director of Communications and Marketing. Started tonight, we know that this is an incredible year. There's a tremendous amount of attention on the elections and on ways that we can be sharing our message. So I'm going to turn things, I just want to share with you all a little bit about what we're going to talk about this evening. Just understanding a broad view of the platforms, various platforms that we use. Talk about that this is all based on relationships, all social media. Talking about how we're crafting content, how you can craft content, and give you some examples and resources so that you'll actually be able to help your branch, your state, put information out there. And then, because it's such a politically contentious time, I'll share a couple of guidelines just to make sure that we're all on the right side of the IRS's concerns about electioneering, and then talk about some key dates. I see we have a hand raised, but first, let me turn it over to Kendall and to talk a little bit more about AAUW's usage of social media, and then I'll open it up for some questions. Kendall?
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to join you and our members of our AAUW community. Long day, y'all, sorry. So really excited to be here to talk to you about how AAUW uses social media. We are currently on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. So if you're not following us there, let me just first say, please follow us there because there's an entire conversation that happens there and you should totally be a part of it. So we primarily use social media for a few key reasons. First, we use it to connect with our community of advocates and activists. There are conversations there that we are a part of in the comment section. We like to put out content that will provoke people to think or consider a point of view that goes along with our mission, our vision, the work that we do. And it's not just important to be saying things on social media. It's really important to be listening to conversations happening on social media. Sometimes it's not about the content that you put on your page, but it's maybe engaging in the comments in a very constructive way. So first, we're connecting with our community. Second, we're sharing information, whether it's about legislation that we're advocating for, or about legislative decisions, or bills that have been passed into law and how that affects the real lives of real women. We might be sharing information about that. We use social media to tell stories, right? Because that's really what people connect with. What's more interesting? Somebody telling you that they paid, that they received 84 cents for every dollar a man received for pay, or if we talk about how, if we tell a story about how that inequity in pay affects everything else. I can't buy, as much, I can't buy as many groceries as I would be able to buy, or I'm not able to buy a house because I'm being underpaid. Using a story through social media to convey emotion, convey a level of reality to people, that is something that you definitely want to do. And that's what we aim to do at AAUW. And then last but not least, we use social media as a rallying cry. It's where we put calls to action, whether it's, hey, this event is happening, join us for this webinar, join us for this march. Here's the who, what, when, where, and why, all the details you need to show up, act, become a 2-minute activist. we want people to do or feel something at the end of engaging with us in our content on social media. So having that call to action is definitely one way that we use social media to advance the mission of AAUW.
Kendall, thank you for sharing that perspective. What I'm going to do is walk through some things very specifically about how how AUW is using social media for around the elections, and how AUW affiliates, our states, our branches are able to use social media. So I want to start off just by acknowledging, when I say social media, that's a very broad universe. Realistically, most people are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, which most people still refer to as Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Now, each one of these platforms has a different demographic that they focus on. And what I'll do is I will share after this webinar, I will share with everybody. Pew Research Foundation has actually put together research on what the demographics are for each of the different platforms. So if you're interested in that, it's good to know. And we're primarily on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The reason I'm not delving too deep into any of those particular platforms is the thing about social media is the same thing about advocacy in general. It's all about relationships, and it is all about being your authentic self and having conversations with the people that you're already having them with. If you are not currently on TikTok, I am not suggesting that you go out and start a TikTok channel. This is not for you. I might hurt a knee if I tried that. But be authentic. Be who you are. If you engage with folks on Facebook, fantastic. Talk to folks on Facebook. What we'll talk about is give you content, give you suggestions on how you can be more effective and efficient. If you are an Instagrammer, fantastic. Wonderful way to share our photos and our experiences with folks. And one of the things about social media and relationships is, and I'm going to throw my mom under the bus just a little bit. My mom is a little bit more of a voyeur. She watches social media, but she doesn't engage. Now, that's great. I'm not here to teach anybody about social media in general, but how are we going to use it for the election? Use it for voter registration, voter engagement, and getting out the vote. And if we're going to do that, we need to be social on social media. We need to like other people's things. We need to share other content. We need to retweet and push out other solid information. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So things that I want everybody to keep in mind for this is really think through, who are you following? Who follows you? What's that relationship? Also, who could you be following? Are there folks in your community that have a broader soapbox than you do? Reach out to them on social media. It's much easier than inviting somebody for coffee in real life. Reach out, like their posts, comment on things. And when you're posting on social media, perspective, but be polite. One of the things I should say as a caveat is that for the rest of the conversation, please assume that I'm actually talking about an AUW account, social media account, and not your personal account. because I'm going to talk about particular guardrails on how to have conversations and how to engage in on social media around the elections that is going to presume that you're talking about this from a perspective of a branch or a state. And with that said, it really is about relationships. If an AAUW branch or your state has social media, this is a two-way street. This isn't a website where we're just sharing information outward. Social media is truly meant to be social. It is meant to be a two-way conversation. So it is meant to, people are going to respond to your comments. And you're going to have to deal with that. You don't have to like all of them. You don't have to block all of them. Don't get into fights with trolls. Have a perspective, be firm, but also when you're wearing your AAUW hat, we need to be nonpartisan. So I want to talk just a little bit about content. And Kendall, if you have any thoughts, feel free to jump in at any time. But I wanted to highlight just a couple of things, and I'm going to run through this really fast. That the thing about content is you all have it. I mean, it's not that we're starting from scratch. Part of this is, if we're trying to think of, okay, I want to use social media to really engage my community around this election. One of the easiest ways is to share and repost. What are your partners doing? What is AAUW National doing? This is a great example on the screen from AAUW Kentucky. They are engaged with a public school initiative, fighting back against vouchers, core principle of our public policy priorities. And what they're doing is they're sharing the content from a trusted partner. It's nonpartisan. And I want to note what they're doing here. They're tagging, the state is tagging all of the branches. And that's a sign to all of the branches. Hey, repost this, share this. I'm not going to get into the details about social media algorithms, but when your content is liked and shared, it's going to be seen by a lot more people. It ends up being higher up in people's news feeds. So it really is incredibly important. Hit the like buttons, hit the share buttons. One of the other things that AAUW Kentucky did, and we've been doing it too, is tag people and let them know that you're thinking about them. Back in June, we had a lot of fun with a campaign about Hey CNN, because we realized that back in 2020, that when Trump and Biden debated then, as many words as they spoke, there were very few of them actually about women. So we were calling on CNN to ask about women, ask about pay equity. We also knew that we were not going to be able to do this by ourselves. So first, we tagged CNN and we tagged the moderators of that debate, so that first they would see that we were doing this. Second, we were asking folks to repost and to also tag these folks, because when we collectively are doing this together, we have a tremendous amount of impact. Other things just about good content and a couple of other fun examples is use hashtags. The benefit of using hashtags, and you can see this in some of our AAUW Michigan's posting here, for example. AAUW Michigan, they used AAUW National's voter issue guide. They shared this information out. They used hashtags about the 2024 election. And the reason for it is because people search hashtags. It's a way for us and you to actually see if your information is getting out into the world. And it is picking up on people who are searching for information about gender equity or information about the elections. So hashtags, they're not just fun, they're actually serving a purpose and getting the information out there. I put up on the screen just a couple of hashtags that we've been using. AAUW has been using It's My Vote as part of our voter registration engagement campaign. We're also partners with the National Voter Registration Day and When We All Vote. And one of those hashtags that both of them are using is for people to be vote ready. So wanted to highlight a couple of those. And in case you're thinking, okay, I have no idea what kind of content I need to put together. AUWs across the country, we have content, we have things to say. And if I didn't say it before, pictures are key. Pictures are absolutely key. And even things that you don't think, oh gosh, I do not have a picture for a calendar. Well, you could. You can create a simple graphic. How about AUW California, who introduced their new incoming president? And what they did, and I don't have it on here fully, is that they created a video using 3 simple slides. It didn't take any video expertise whatsoever to put this together. But video content and photos remind people that we're part of the community, we're working for the community. Something that I want to make sure to say, especially this year, is that I am all for and encouraging of reposting content. And I know that there's a tremendous amount of excitement and interest in the election, especially at the national level. I am also quite aware of how much misinformation and disinformation, which is intentional information meant to confuse people. I am talking to a group of very smart people, and I'm just going to put out a reminder. Think before you post. The more emotionally charged something is, when you're wearing your AUW hat, give it a couple seconds. Think about it. Is there something to be gained? Who is posting this? Why is this information being put out there? Fact check things. Even I was watching the Democratic National Convention last night. Even folks on a national stage who have been vetted completely, even they are being fact checked by the fact checkers. Just because something is said and it is said loudly and often doesn't make it true. So this year, AUW collectively, family, I ask you, let's make sure that we're not contributing to the issue of putting out information that might not be credible. So that's a little bit of my morning. So one of the things that we wanted to do tonight was to share with all of you real examples, real resources, and make sure that we're all doing this together, because collectively we can have a tremendous impact. Collectively, the people that we're able to reach across our social media channels is immense. Right now, what I'm showing on your screen is we've taken our voter issue guide. We've gone through, there's actually a couple of issues missing on here. I couldn't fit them all on screen. And we've been posting, these are a set of Instagram slides so that people can slide through and read a little bit about the issue and what are some questions that people should be asking their own candidates. And it's okay if it's not their federal candidate. It's okay if they never actually get to ask their candidate these questions directly. But the idea is that we want people thinking about these questions themselves as they are self-evaluating who they want to vote for. So all of this information is completely available, and we're making the slides available, the graphics available, and you can post it with your own comments, or you can actually just share what AAUW National has posted. I want to give just a couple of other examples. Every week, we're putting up new content about voter registration, voter education. We have a way for people to come to our site and check if they are registered to vote. And I should probably not admit this to all of you, but I am actually one of those people who needed to check their voter registration because I moved in the past year. And my voter registration and where I am sitting are not attached to the same address. I checked my voter registration and realized, shoot, I need to update this. So even for folks who you think that take for granted that this person votes all the time, you don't know, something might have changed. And one of the things that we're doing this year is we're asking people their why. It's not enough that it's a right. It's not enough that we just passed the anniversary of the 19th Amendment where women were granted, most women were granted the right to vote. But what's driving you? Because what's driving Kendall and what's driving me might be two different things. And what is driving somebody in Michigan and Minnesota might be two different things. So I want to invite folks, all of your branches, we have these signs available. Print them out. Bring them to a voter registration event. Ask people what their why is. Take pictures of them. That's going to give you a tremendous amount of social media content. I want to show off a couple of our other states and branches. This is great examples of how we can be using social media for voter education, voter registration. There's an example here from Missouri. They're working with the lawyers council on civil rights. Sorry, don't mangling their name there. But it's the Election Protection Hotline. This is something I'll reference with the resource documents. We want to make sure that we're pushing this out, that everybody's pushing this out. We know that there have been so many efforts to undermine access to voting. We also want to make sure that what we can do in our communities is folks should know that there are lawyers on the other side of these phone numbers who speak multiple languages, who know the laws in your state. This is why please don't send them to me. I will not know this information, but the Election Protection Hotline will. So having AAUW Missouri sharing this information is wonderful. And I don't need to tell all of you because I believe this is something that is happening on a regular basis. But I want to highlight something that AAUW Des Moines is doing. Next week, they're having a conversation about Project 2025. And they've got somebody who's coming in. A couple of things that they're doing great in this post. Not only did they put it in text, but they made this into a graphic. They added a photo. This is actually going to make your social media sing. This is actually, that I wasn't going to mention the algorithms, but this is going to help the algorithms pick this up. And this is pretty simple for folks to do. I also want to reference that we have a lot of great organizational partners that we are working with. Many of you may know that AAUW is partnered with When We All Vote. They are the ones who are supporting our voter registration portal. They have great social media content, and they have a tremendous amount of images and graphics and social media posts that you can just use. You can either repost what they're putting out, or you can take it from a social media toolkit that they have. And they have so many overlapping issues with AAUW, whether it be voting rights or abortion rights, and really just highlighting information that people need to know. People need to understand what is on their ballot and who is impacted by these elections. Also partnered with the National Voter Registration Day. They have an entire social media toolkit for National Voter Registration Day. If you don't have it on your calendar, it's September 17th. And the reason for that is that they are making sure that we're really making a big push for folks to be vote ready, have their voter registration in hand before any of the deadlines for any of the states. Now, I mentioned that social media is also, it's about letting your personality shine. It is about having fun. I hope that others watched the Olympics. I'm also going to give myself and AUW a shout out because we were having fun. The first presidential debate, we had some bingo cards and we put them out on social media and we invited people to tag. I mean, the National Voter Registration Day, they are having fun. They are looking at current events. What are people thinking about right now? How are they having fun? This is very aligned with their personality on social media. So there wasn't anything strange about this. And it was just having fun with the information. So a couple of accounts to follow, just if you're looking for inspiration or some easy posts, please follow AUW National and the AUW Action Fund, which is on Twitter or X and Facebook. I mentioned When We All Vote, National Voter Registration Day, Vote 411 with the League of Women Voters. Really good nonpartisan information. And the Election Protection Hotline. These aren't the only accounts to follow, but I did want to highlight these. These are great partners, and these are all nonpartisan information. So I've mentioned the word a couple of times. Nonpartisan. What does it mean? What does it mean when we're talking about AUW? And what does it mean when we're talking about the election? Simple, really. AUW, no matter what anybody's personal opinions may be, we do not endorse or support or do anything that could be construed as trying to advance a particular partisan candidate. I don't want to parse words, but AUW can be involved at a local level when there's nonpartisan races. So if you have a nonpartisan school board race, for example, by all means, you actually can talk about candidates. But if we're talking about, I don't know, the presidential election, we can't do anything that looks like we're endorsing a particular candidate. Now, some of you might actually say, didn't you just point out something that was talking about Project 2025? And my answer to you would be, why, yes, I did. Because Project 2025, for all the ways that has been defined in the media, is a publication of the Heritage Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization. Yes, it is being attached. The Democrats are trying to attach it to the Republicans, but it is not a Republican document. So I'll give you just a really quick example, because this happened with us. One of our branches posted something on social media about the GOP's Project 2025 and their opposition to it. That was not allowed. We reached out, we talked to them, we said, look, you just need to be specific in this case. And they were, and they switched that. and they made sure that they weren't talking about a particular party. Also, when you're thinking about content, said the easiest way to do social media and the election is share and repost other people's information. Wonderful. It's easy. It gives you a lot of content that you don't have to think of every single time. But what you can't do is you can't repost, don't share, don't like anything that is from a party, that's from an organization that endorses a party or a candidate. You can do that with your personal hats, but not with wearing your AAUW hat. So this is just a couple of other different way of saying this. When you're looking at an AAUW social media account, just be mindful of what kind of information we're sharing and who it's coming from. This even holds true for what kind of hashtags are you using. I'm not trying to make it complicated, but there were some rallying cries at the DNC last night that have translated into hashtags. We know what they are, don't use them. And even if your branch is a 501c3 nonprofit, you can share information from a 501c4 as long as information is nonpartisan. Now, for those of you who don't want to get bogged down in C3s, C4s, IRS tax laws, all this is really saying is nothing that any of us do can be partisan as this particular organization. So, other effective ways to use social media. One is be aware of the time. What is going on around us? There's a lot happening. There is a lot happening for what we call civic engagement holidays. There's one coming up on September 17th, Voter Registration Day. I hope that everybody listening today is going to be engaged in some way, either partnering with or leading a voter registration effort somewhere in your neighborhood, in your community, in your state. In October, there's Voter Education Week. How are we making sure that we are sharing information with folks about what is on their ballot, who is on their ballot, and what are the voting rules in your community? Where are the voting locations? How can we help people be vote ready? This is information that we can share over social media, in addition to using traditional media, using letters to the editor, using flyers in libraries. Where else are people located that we can be sharing information? Just want to point out two other dates here that aren't part of the civic holidays, but September 10th, AAUW, we're having a member gathering. I hope that you will all join us. And for my political geeks out there, there will also be a presidential debate. It should be interesting. And we may see more of them, and you will certainly see AAUW National doing a lot on social media and encouraging folks to be engaged, pay attention. It sounds crazy, but most people haven't been paying attention until we're fewer than 100 days out. And I'll also just give a shout out. We're going to be doing another webinar just before the election, and talking about some of those issues, taking a look at the national perspective and seeing what's happening across the nation. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time and want to open up the chat to see if there's other questions, keeping an eye on those. I think there might have been a hand raised earlier. So if you have any questions, please feel free. And while you're thinking, couple of things that I want to share with you. We are recording this, and there are a number of resources that I've mentioned from the National Voter Registration Day. There's good information from When We All Vote. They have social media toolkits, and I want to make sure that everybody has access to those and all of the examples that were included in the presentation. And we'll be sharing that. So we'll be recording this, sharing that out with the resources document. Also, at any point in time, you can always feel free to reach out to us, either sending an email to either advocacy@AAUW or policy@AAUW. Both will get to our team. And I did mention, I've used the word a partnership in reference to a couple of our associations. And I think this has come up before, and I do want to acknowledge this, is that, you know, there really are some differences between when we're partnering and when we're collaborating. AAUW does have formal partnerships with National Voter Registration Day and When We All Vote. We also collaborate with a lot of other organizations, League of Women Voters, YWCA, and that's less of a formal partnership, and that is more of a collaboration. But there's wonderful groups. You don't need to have a formal arrangement to share and promote what other folks are doing. And there's also a question that came in about ballot measures. And I'm really glad that this was asked, because a ballot measure, supporting a ballot measure, is not considered electioneering. It is not a partisan issue. And as long as it is not in opposition to AAUW's public policy priorities, your AAUW state can 100% support and endorse a ballot measure. I know that many of our states actually are. I know that Arizona and Florida are looking at the abortion ballots on their issues. I know that Missouri is, and I'm not going to call out all of the states because I will inevitably forget one of them. But that's actually one of the things that you all can expect to see from AAUW National, is that we want to work in partnership with your branch in your state. That it's likely that we're going to have a bigger social media footprint. So if you are supporting an issue in your community, a ballot measure in Arizona, or a ballot measure in Missouri, and you've got social media from a collaboration that you're in, tag AAUW National so we can repost that. We can make sure that we get even more eyes on things. The best thing about social media is it is absolutely, truly a partnership between AAUW National, AAUW states and branches, and we can together have a much bigger voice. I'm going to pause just a moment to see if there's other questions. I don't see any. I want to thank everybody for joining today. And as I said, we're going to make this information available. We'll be sharing this out. I sincerely thank you for your interest in anything you are doing to make sure that more people understand what their rights are as it relates to voting, what issues are on the ballot, how their lives are going to be impacted, and how we can make sure that everybody has the ability to get out and vote. Because when women vote, we change the conversation. Thank you all, and have a great night.